After my emergency C-section, I wrote, "I can't move. Please help with the baby." No one replied. The next morning, my sister uploaded beach photos, grateful for family. A month later, alone with the child, my screen lit up, 82 missed calls, and a text from Dad, "Send $6,000 today." I kissed my baby's head and replied. The nurse had just left the room. It was almost 3 a.m., the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the only sound was my daughter's soft breathing in the bassinet next to me. I had just been wheeled out of the OR hours earlier after an emergency C-section. They had to put me under completely. I remember waking up confused, in pain, and terrified because I hadn't heard her cry yet. Turned out she was okay. Tiny but strong. I couldn't move from the waist down. My body was heavy, my mouth dry, and there was this sharp, radiating pain in my lower belly every time I tried to shift. I reached for my phone and typed out what felt like a lifeline. "I can't move. Please help with the baby." I sent it to the family group chat. My mom, dad, sister, brother. All of them lived within a 30-minute drive. Some even closer. No one replied. I stared at the screen, waiting for the little typing dots to appear. Nothing. Not a single message. Not even a seen checkmark. I must have dozed off for a bit, and when I woke up again, the morning light was pushing in through the hospital blinds. I tapped my phone again. Still nothing. Until a few minutes later, a notification popped up. My sister had just uploaded new photos to her Instagram story. I clicked on it almost reflexively. It was her. In a two-piece at some beach resort, cocktail in hand, flashing a perfect smile. The caption, "Grateful for family." I didn't cry. I just stared at the screen in a kind of stillness I didn't know I was capable of. It wasn't just that she was away. It was that she chose to be, while I lay there barely able to move, feeding my baby with the help of a rotating crew of exhausted nurses. There was no father waiting outside the room. I hadn't heard from him since I was 3 months pregnant. We had been shopping for cribs when I told him I'd heard the heartbeat. He looked pale and left to get a bottle of water. That was the last time I saw him. The only person who showed up that day was my friend Zoe. She wasn't even in the group chat. He just knew. She brought snacks I couldn't eat, flowers I couldn't smell, and most importantly, she held my daughter for the first time when I couldn't. After 4 days, they discharged me. Zoe helped me get dressed, packed my bag, and pushed the wheelchair out to her car. My mom never showed. My dad texted congrats once. My brother didn't say a word. None of them came to see their granddaughter. I went back to my tiny rented apartment. 1 bedroom, barely enough space to walk around the crib. But at least it was mine. I propped myself up with pillows, cradled my daughter, and tried not to think about the things I didn't have. A month passed. The pain dulled, but I was still healing. I was breastfeeding, up every 2 hours and doing it all alone. Then one night my phone buzzed violently on the nightstand. The screen was lit up. 82 missed calls. Most were from my dad. Then a message popped up. "Send $6,000 today." That was it. No punctuation. No hello. Just that. My stomach sank. I read it again. Then I kissed my baby's head and replied. I replied with 4 words. For what, exactly? It didn't take long. My dad called again. I didn't pick up. Then another text came in. "Your brother's kitchen flooded. We need to redo the floors, plumbing, everything. Your mom says you've been saving up. We'll pay you back." I stared at it, trying to decide if I was more angry or more stunned. I had told my mom once, just once, that I was trying to save what little I could from the disability checks and leftover PTO money. Just enough for emergencies or formula if I couldn't breastfeed anymore. I replied, "You didn't even come to see her." No answer. Not a single message back. But I could see he'd read it. The next day, Zoe dropped by with groceries. She didn't ask why I looked so done. She just looked around and said, "Want me to hold her while you shower?" Afterward, I told her everything. The texts, the calls, the $6,000, the fact that no one, not a single one of them, had seen my daughter. She didn't try to calm me down. She didn't say it was just stress or hormones or that maybe they were just bad at emotional stuff. She just shook her head. "They don't deserve either of you." It was about a week later when my mom showed up unannounced. She knocked like she had a right to. Zoe was over again, folding baby clothes while I tried to soothe the baby who had started teething early. When I opened the door, my mom walked in like she lived there. No flowers, no gifts, not even a glance at the baby. She sat down at my tiny kitchen table and launched right in. She said they were counting on me. That it wasn't just about money, it was about being part of the family. That my brother, the golden boy, was going through a rough patch and they were stretched thin. That my dad was stressed, and I should understand what that does to a man's nerves. I stood there holding my baby, watching this woman who had carried me, raised me, but couldn't lift a single finger when I was laid open on an operating table alone. Zoe came out of the bedroom holding a bottle and said flatly, You should leave. My mom looked shocked, like she hadn't even noticed Zoe was here. She got up and said she didn't expect me to turn against my own blood. And then, as if that wasn't enough, she added, "Your brother says you've changed, that you're not acting like family anymore." That broke something. Not a dramatic shatter, just a clean, silent snap. She left. I didn't stop her. A week later, my brother texted me for the first time since I gave birth. Not to say congratulations. Not to ask about his niece. Just, "Mom said you were rude. You could have helped." I stared at that text for a long time. I typed a response. Deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too. In the end, I said nothing. Instead, I opened my notes app, made a list of people who'd shown up when it mattered, and it had one name on it. Zoe. Then I started a new list. People I need to cut off. Guess who was on top? I didn't tell anyone. I didn't make a speech or send a dramatic goodbye text. I just started removing them. First my brother. Then my dad. I hesitated over my mom's name like it was some kind of betrayal, like cutting her off meant I was officially alone. But then I remembered her sitting in my kitchen a week after my C-section, pretending like nothing had happened, like I wasn't raising her granddaughter alone while still healing from surgery. I blocked her too. There was no peace. Just a weird silence, like waiting for a storm that never came. I kept checking my phone out of habit. No one messaged. No one showed up. Not even to check if I was okay. Zoe said that was proof of everything I needed to know. "They're gonna come back," she said. "But not because they love you. Because they need something." She wasn't wrong. A couple of weeks went by. Zoe brought groceries when she could. I stayed inside, focused on the baby, tried to ignore the anxiety that crept in around 2 a.m. when it was just me, the crying, and the dark ceiling. Some nights I whispered apologies to my daughter, for bringing her into this mess, for not giving her a better family, for being too tired to do more. Other nights I just held her and swore I'd never be like them. Then came the knock. It was early evening and the baby had finally fallen asleep. I almost didn't answer. When I looked through the peephole, I saw my dad standing there like he had every right to be. He brought cheap takeout and an energy I recognized, like we were old friends reconnecting, like the last 3 months hadn't happened. He didn't ask how I was. He glanced at the baby, made a lame joke about how fast they grow, then finally got to it. "We were thinking of doing family dinners again. Sundays. Thought it might be nice if you brought the baby." I didn't say anything. He kept going casually like this was some neighborhood check-in. "Also, your brother's new place has been a mess. Still needs help with the garage and stuff. Since you're staying home anyway, maybe you could pitch in." That was when I asked, "What's her name?" He blinked at me like I'd asked him to solve a math equation. "What?" "My daughter. What's her name?" He looked at the floor. Then back at me. He didn't know. Not even a guess. She was 3 months old. I didn't say another word. Just opened the door and pointed out. He hesitated, muttered something about me being ungrateful, then left. That night, I held my daughter on the couch while Zoe sat beside me folding laundry. I told her everything. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just shook her head, then looked right at me. "You know what? If they come back again, I'll answer the door." I didn't laugh. I just stared at the baby and whispered her name, the one they didn't bother to learn. The next morning, I moved the crib, cleaned out the closets, packed a box of things I didn't need anymore. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was doing something that mattered. I didn't know what came next, but I knew this. I wasn't part of their family anymore. Not the kind they believed in. But they weren't done. Exactly 10 days later, they showed up again. My mom. And this time, she didn't come alone. My brother was with her. And he looked like he was ready to start a war. They didn't knock. They leaned on the buzzer until the baby started crying. I stood there frozen, watching her face scrunch up, the little fists clench, her tiny voice rising like an alarm I couldn't shut off. Took everything not to scream. When I finally pressed the intercom, my mom's voice came through flat and cold. "Emily, it's time we talk. Your brother's here too." Zoe was in the kitchen sterilizing bottles. I looked at her. She didn't say anything, but I saw it in her face. "Don't open the door. Just don't." But I did. Not because I wanted to hear them out. Because I wanted to hear exactly how far they were willing to go. They stood there like I'd summoned them. My mom with this oversized binder clutched to her chest, and my brother looking like a bouncer at the entrance to my own life. "We're not here to fight," my mom said. I didn't invite them in. I just stood there. She opened the binder and pulled out papers. I thought maybe it was some financial offer, a half apology tied up with conditions. No, it was printouts of my Instagram post. My stories. Comments I'd made on Zoe's page. Highlighted phrases like, "No support system," and "Thankful for the friends who showed up when no one else did." "This has to stop," she said. "We've seen what you're saying. You're painting a picture that's unfair." My brother crossed his arms. We're your family, not your punching bag. You weren't there, I said. None of you came. We didn't know it was that serious, he said. You knew I had a C-section and couldn't walk. That's serious enough. My mom held up a hand like I was being emotional again. That's not the point. We're here because we want to work something out. You've got no job, no income, no support besides Zoe. We're offering help. Financial, practical. But we expect respect. I couldn't even respond. It was like watching a stranger list the reasons why I owed them gratitude for abandoning me. Then she said it. If you want us to help cover rent, we will. But you'll need to start showing up for the family. Your brother's house is still in chaos. He needs someone to watch the place while the work gets done. You can stay there a few days a week. Absolutely not. My brother shrugged. It's not a big deal. It's just a dog and a contractor. You don't even work. That was when Zoe walked out of the hallway. She'd heard everything. She didn't say a word. Just picked up the baby and walked back into the bedroom. Then my mom said the thing that made my hands go cold. We're also concerned about the baby. It's not healthy for her to be raised in isolation. If you can't manage, we're willing to help, even take her for a little while. Just until you get back on your feet. I didn't answer. I stepped forward and pointed out the door. You're not taking her anywhere. My mom kept her voice calm. No one's trying to take her. We're just saying, if something happened, we'd be the ones they'd call. Legally, we're still your family. That matters. There was the real reason they were here. Not to help. Not to reconnect. Control. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just said, you have 5 seconds to get out. My brother scoffed. Seriously? You're threatening us. Zoe came back with her phone in her hand. We're not threatening. We're documenting. They finally left. No hugs, no goodbyes. My mom said one last thing before the door closed behind her. Don't make this worse than it has to be. For 2 days it was quiet. Then on a rainy Thursday afternoon I came home from a short walk with the stroller. There was something taped to the door. A letter. Official looking. From Child Protective Services. Zoe was the one who opened it. Her hands shook. The report was anonymous. But it listed everything. My unstable condition, the lack of financial support, my refusal to involve family. They didn't sign their names. They didn't have to. Zoe read the letter twice before handing it to me. I didn't speak. My stomach twisted like it already knew what was coming before my brain caught up. The report was full of lies. That I was depressed and neglecting the baby. That I was emotionally unstable and rejecting help from family. That I left my child alone for long stretches of time. The phrasing was careful, designed to sound concerned, but it was poison dressed up in official language. There was a line in it that made my blood run cold. The mother has exhibited erratic behavior and refused reasonable offers of assistance from close relatives who expressed concern for the infant's well-being. I sat on the edge of the couch holding the baby, who had no idea the life she was born into. I stared at the wall thinking about how fast this could all go wrong. How one anonymous call could spiral. How the truth doesn't always win when the right words are put on the wrong paper. They're trying to scare you, Zoe said. They want to rattle you into submission. I believed her. But that didn't stop the anxiety. I barely slept that night, constantly checking if the baby was breathing, if she was warm enough, if the front door was still locked. Every sound outside made me jump. The next day I called a lawyer. Zoe found the number. The consult was short and brutal. The lawyer said these cases usually went nowhere. If I kept records, if I stayed calm, if no one escalated. But the moment a caseworker showed up, I had to be perfect. No yelling. No panic. No reacting. You need stability, she said. And if you don't have it, go where you can get it. Fast. That night, Zoe made me tea and told me what she'd been holding back. There's another option, she said. You remember your Aunt Renee? I hadn't spoken to her in years. She was my dad's sister, the only person in that entire family who had ever sent me a real message after the baby was born. One line, if you ever need a place, my door is open. She meant it, Zoe said. I reached out. She's expecting your call. I didn't know what to feel. Moving away wasn't part of my plan. I wanted to raise my daughter here, prove I could do it on my own. But what was I proving, and to who? To people who were actively trying to ruin me? The next morning I packed. Not everything, just the essentials. Baby clothes, bottles, documents, photos, diapers. Zoe helped tape the boxes. Neither of us spoke much. Every few minutes she'd stop and say, "You're doing the right thing," like she was trying to convince both of us. I called my aunt that night. She answered on the second ring. Her voice was calm. She didn't ask questions. Just said, "Come as soon as you can. You and the baby. We have space." I cried after I hung up. I didn't want to. I'd held it together for months. But this Someone actually wanting us. That cracked something open. I didn't tell anyone in my family. Not a word. Zoe took 2 days off work and drove us there herself. 4 hours straight. She didn't let me touch the wheel once. The baby slept most of the ride. When we pulled into Aunt Renee's driveway, I didn't expect to cry again. But then I saw her standing there on the porch, arms already out, and I felt something I hadn't in months. Safe. She hugged me, kissed the baby's head, and didn't ask anything about the drama. Just said, "You're here. That's what matters." Inside, her husband had already set up a crib. That night, after the baby was down, I sat on their back porch with a blanket and tea, listening to the quiet. No intercom buzzes. No knocks. No tension pressing on my chest. Zoe sat next to me. "You good?" she asked. I nodded. Better than I've been in months. But I knew it wasn't over. The messages started again the next day. The messages started that morning. My phone had been on silent since we arrived, but I checked it out of habit while feeding the baby. 47 unread messages. The first was from my mom. "Where are you?" Then another. "You need to stop this nonsense before it gets worse." And then the real reason they noticed I was gone. "We have a contractor scheduled for Monday and your brother can't take off work. We thought you'd be around this week to help." No mention of the baby. No asking if we were safe. Just their plans, as if I was some side character in their lives they expected to show up on cue. Then came the voicemails. My brother furious. My dad pretending to be calm but slipping into threats. My mom guilt-tripping like it was her superpower. Zoe was in the kitchen with Aunt Renee making breakfast. I just sat there on the guest bed, baby in my lap, phone in my hand, staring at a life I had finally chosen to walk away from. I didn't reply. By afternoon they knew I'd blocked them again. I got one last email, long, messy, filled with phrases like, "Ungrateful daughter, manipulated by that friend of yours, and you don't break up a family over a few miscommunications." Aunt Renee read it over my shoulder and said one thing. "Delete it. You're not responsible for their broken parts." She never asked for details. Never needed the whole story. She just made space. That was all I had ever wanted. And now I had it. Her husband fixed up the spare room to be mine and the baby's. They bought a sound machine for her crib and a rocking chair for the corner. My uncle started calling her Peanut, and every time he held her she'd go still like she could feel the difference in energy. No stress. No tension. Just warmth. I got my first full night of sleep a week later. I didn't dream. I just rested. Zoe drove back home eventually. She cried when she left, but she promised to visit. She kept that promise. She sent me job listings for remote work and links for affordable online therapy. She told me, "You're not just surviving anymore. You're allowed to live." That sentence stuck with me, because for the first time I actually believed it. No more begging people to care. No more pretending I didn't notice who disappeared when I needed them most. No more performing strength while falling apart inside. I cut them off. Not just from my phone but from my future. My daughter's future. The ones who chose not to show up when I couldn't move are no longer allowed to have a say in where we go next. Now my daughter wakes up every morning in a room where she is wanted. I drink my coffee on a quiet porch with no dread in my chest. My aunt tells me stories about my mom when they were little. Not to make me forgive her but to remind me where the cycle started. And every day I choose not to continue it. Took everything I had to walk away. But looking at my baby sleeping, smiling in her dreams, I know without a doubt, we walked in the right direction. We didn't just escape. We started over. And this time we're not going back.